had a very short time to write the book, and I was also very aware of, having been in a parallel business for a long time, I was very aware that you cannot overthink it or overplan it. I think if you sit, and I was in a desperate situation, I was out of work, this had to succeed. It was not a question of this is kind of something I would kind of like to do, it wasn't something I was kind of interested in, this had to work. But the contradictory aspect to that is that the more desperate it becomes, the less you can afford to think about it. Because if you start to overthink a thing, if you start to say to yourself, well, this has got to work, and therefore I need people in America to buy it, and I need people in Britain to buy it, and I need women aged 45 to 54, they're a big book market segment, and I need younger men, and I need this, and I need that. If you start to over-specify it like that in your head, then you end up with a completely wooden character with all the life beaten out of him. He's, to some extent, politically correct. He's ticking too many boxes. He's kind of laundry list of virtues that you imagine people are going to respond to. And I was very aware of that. The only way to do it is to completely close your eyes, empty your head, and just write completely from the gut and see what comes out. And of course, what came out was Reacher. But looking back on it, of course, you can then analyze it. And after 2 or 3 books, I started to think, well, where did he come from? I was asking myself the same question that you're asking. And clearly, where he came from was decades and decades of reading. Because generally speaking, I think literally the only preparation for being a writer is to be a reader. You've got to have read and read and read thousands and thousands and thousands of books. And you reach a point where you feel that you can then start doing it. And so I'd read all those books, and with this, part of them at school, part of them at college, and this huge broad spread of stuff, fiction, non-fiction, history, ancient stuff, modern stuff. And you suddenly realize that there is a kind of universal character. In fact, there are several universal characters, but one of them very much is the mysterious stranger, the noble loner, who shows up at the crucial time, performs some vital service, and then rides up into the sunset. That character has been around for literally thousands of years and tends to pop up in one genre of representation or another every 50 or 100 years. And you can stretch that, you can trace it back. Obviously the Westerns, that character, Shane, the man with no name, any Zane Grey hero, that was very much the center of Western storytelling in America. But it was not invented there. That was an adaptation, pretty much lock, stock, and barrel, of a much earlier myth from Europe, from the medieval period. Middle Ages in Europe had the identical character. Instead of riding in off the range with his Winchester rifle, the medieval version would ride out of the forest with a lance. Exactly the same character. Perform the vital service and then ride off into the sunset. You trace it back a little further, it's there in the Scandinavian sagas. Further than that, it's in the Anglo-Saxon poems. You could even argue that it's a religious type of myth, it's a savior myth, the mysterious character who shows up and is central to people's lives. So this is a character that has always existed, and I guess I realized what I'd done is just tapped into that, written a version of that character. Specifically, I think it was a character that appealed to me because it had been corrupted and polluted somewhat in recent genre fiction, in as much as these heroes were, I think, out of the delusion that it makes them interesting. A lot of writers were making them very damaged and dysfunctional. They were, one after the other, they were alcoholics, or recovering alcoholics, or divorced recovering alcoholics, or divorced recovering alcoholics who were so traumatized by a mistake that they had to go and live on their own in the woods. And they were carrying bullets, either literal or metaphorical, lodged next to their heart, and they were sort of dragging themselves miserably from one page to the next. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to short-circuit that and go back to an older form of hero that was uncomplicated. And Reacher certainly is. Reacher is a very simple man. Or at least he thinks he's a very simple man. He thinks there's nothing unusual about him. I didn't want a navel-gazing, damaged person. And so that, I think, automatically took me back and fed me into that much more ancient stream. So you know, I don't like to think about it too much because, to paraphrase Yogi Berra, I can't write and think at the same time. But, you know, clearly that's where the character comes from, I think.